Hey everybody, welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How was your new year? I hope it was wonderful. You know, my wife and I went out with some dear friends to a really cool place here in Bozeman, Montana, called of all things, the Devil's Toboggan. It's a mock-up of a speakeasy from the 1920s. It was so cool with the velvet wallpaper and the big velvet chairs. And we had such a terrific time just sharing with dear friends. And one of the things that I came away with was that, wow, is this year going to be important for all of us to feel connection? This is going to be a big year for connection. So without further ado, I am going to jump right into our topic tonight because we've got some fantastic information coming through in part 2 of 2019's Year of Reconstruction. You know, we're going to talk some politics in this show. We're going to talk some money. We're going to talk some weather. And there has even been some new information that's come through to me through the ethers on 2019 that you'll be hearing for those of you that did attend the forum that actually sold out in Billings, Montana, about what 2019 has in store. So if you were at that forum and you're listening today, no worries, because there's some new little goodies that came in since that December forum. And that's kind of the way that the universe rolls. You know, we get into these periods of time where we start realizing that, man, there's a lot happening. And as we change our energies and our opinions, then our future changes and onward we roll. So I have this awesome opportunity today to talk about what we're looking at in terms of great change. And we're going to get the spicy stuff out of the way. We're going to start with politics. You know, so many of us are watching the news and going, oh, nothing's changing. But actually, a lot is changing. Okay? I mean, it doesn't matter what political affiliation that you personally assign yourself to. We are here to simply discuss changes today, okay? And some of the biggest changes that I'm able to see here are in the realm of the balance of consciousness that is entering politics. Now, this year, we have seen more women get elected to the House of Representatives than ever before, which is not surprising because we're now in the feminine time frame. So that's kind of a no-brainer for those of us who follow spiritual physics. Yet what was fascinating is we watched people of color, the first Somalian immigrant to be voted in as a representative, the first Native American woman, the first openly bisexual person. I mean, we're talking about these women who are coming in and saying, yeah, this is me. This is me. We've got the first Islamic woman. You know, all these folks coming in to say, guess what? Here I am. And we'll take it a step further as far as Somalian, Native American, Islamic, openly bisexual. How about people? Because we've never had gentlemen come forward in those realms before and at least be open about it in our Congress. So what we're seeing is the dissolving of preconceived notions of what determined the, quote, American legislator, end quote. And this is really important because as we go forward, this is not a call to the United States to demonize males who happen to be white. That's ridiculous. Then that's everybody turning into the oppressor that we supposedly are trying to transpose our octaves and get out of that oppressive resonation. So it's not about calling all white men demons. And anybody who's going to get sucked into that trap in 2019 is going to have a really hard time. They really are. Because this isn't about demonizing other people. It's just not. This is a time frame that's all about allowing the gifts and talents of everybody to come through. So we're seeing that represented in our year of reconstruction in reconstructing the Congress with a new consciousness. Now, I have a lot of conservative friends. And though, in the effort of transparency here, I really am, I'm a registered Democrat. Although as I get older, I tend to waver around in this sort of independent realm because I would love to abolish the IRS. And apparently that's a big Republican thing, right? Yet at the same time, I really want to make sure that our social programs are in place because it's the responsibility of a nation to hold that up. Well, that's apparently a Democrat thing. And what we're going to be seeing in this amazing time frame that's coming in is a lack of really needing to brand yourself just to bring your ideals forward. People are going to be stepping forward to do the right thing for the country as opposed to doing the right thing for their party. And we're seeing where tribalism in the year of Reconstruction is really going to get rough. And this goes for anybody, in the Democratic Party. If we have people who get super out there about their tribalism and their democratic beliefs and go incredibly radicalized, that's going to have a hard time getting traction in the year of Reconstruction, because that would be more akin to burning down the field and just planting it from scratch. This is not the year to burn it all down and rebuild it. That's not the energy. The energy is to work with what's there, tear down the gross, rotten sheetrock, and improve upon what's there so that the original structure is what's holding it up. Yet the transformation of the new structure is where all of the energetic participation comes in, okay? And if we see folks on the left or on the right, if we're seeing the Tea Party folks really dig in and obstructionism and let's stop this thing until the wall goes up and blah. Oh my gosh. Let's just talk about the wall a minute. It's not that we are not going to pay attention to border security, because we absolutely are. From now until 2025, border security is huge. Yet the hubris in politics that wants to stall and gridlock and own and chest bump and all of the blocker moves that we've seen over the last 15 years, especially the last 10 years, all of the congressional blocker moves are going to fall on their butt, okay? I don't care if it's a Republican leading it, a Democrat leading it, an independent leading it. If people are going to come into the Congress this year and attempt to take over with their stalwart, I'm going to throw a wrench in the machine and shut the whole machine down, that's going to end up with the big fat zero. We're talking a big fat zero here, folks. We're going to have a big fat zero because the energies of Reconstruction do not support obstructionism. Obstructionism, no matter who is levying the obstructionism and no matter what the cause, it may be a very supposed righteous cause, yet the energy of obstructionism, it falls into the imbalanced portion of the old world or the old patriarchal time frame, and it's just not supported. It's not supported in the feminine time frame. Reconstruction, retooling, co-creation, literally coming together, that is what is supported in this time frame. And we're seeing that in people's perceptions. We're seeing that in people's perceptions. We've got the government shutdown running right now. And we've got our president of the United States. God bless him, man. He's just working the old world, isn't he? I look at old Donald Trump and I'm like, oh, buddy. Oh, you're like that guy who wears a leisure suit to go to the high fashion runway show in New York. What are you doing? Change your clothes, man. So there's our president. He's working the old world obstructionism. By God, no, I'm choking this down till we get what I want for the wall. And I mean, it's just, I'm laughing because it is hilarious. Now, it's not hilarious to all of those amazing government employees out there who are furloughed because people have not figured out that the old world energy of obstructionism just ain't gonna fly. It's not gonna fly in the new year. It's not gonna fly from now on because we're done with the exercise of hubris and the exercise of ego. there's going to be a lot coming through our Congress in the next couple of years that true Republicans and true Democrats are going to have to just take a breath and give a little on. Because we are down a rabbit hole that is so intense in this country that if we keep going about it in the old realm or through the old realm's modalities, which is, bumping chests and like the Kurgan in Highlander, there could be only one. I mean, really, come on. If we go about our current time frame in this way, what we're going to experience is we're going to see a lot of really kind of dysfunctional stuff that doesn't go anywhere. So if you're a government employee listening to this, understand that, even though we have our president in his energetic leisure suit, just working that old world energy of throwing down in the deal and doing the poker bluff and all this, that energy is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And I have to tell you, as somebody who sees the inside of people, as somebody who sees timelines, I really feel, I feel for the people, men and women, who were forged under the relentless hammer of the old world to actually believe that their hubris and their ego and their stubbornness equated power. I mean, honestly, that really, oh God, it pains me when I see this. And it pains me because the horrible lessons, and I think they're horrible. I mean, the angelic realm is up here saying, all is good for the learning of humanity. And that's great if you're an angel, but when you're in a flesh suit and you get depressed and things hurt and you get embarrassed, I mean, it's a little different down here as a person, right? So I personally feel horribly for those who cannot get out of their old world leisure suits. And when I look at the energy that Donald Trump is here to represent for all of us, he is just riding that old world line. And again, I keep saying this every show practically. He's going to get an Oscar on the other side for this one. He is going to win the Academy Award for Best Energetic Leisure Suit Wearer. Because, man, he's going to wear that leisure suit right off the cliff. And he's going to be flying off the cliff with those bell bottoms flapping and those giant collars catching an updraft. And off he'll fly with his giant collars, So when we look at the year of Reconstruction in government, obstructionism isn't going to work. And what we're going to see is nothing massively dramatic. Okay, we're not going to see some big dramatic turnaround or coup or power play. Any of the old world, hyper-masculinated, imbalanced portion of the masculine, stuff that we used to see, we're not going to see that. What we're going to see instead is just this weird wilting, withering of a balloon. So if you can imagine, and I'm just using Donald Trump as an example because he's the one who's really pushing this shutdown for the border wall budget and all these things. And it's important to note that even Mr. Trump is feeling the change in the energies. He wanted to weigh in on a bill or a budget where they got less funding for the border wall because they weren't going to make it out of concrete. They were going to use steel instead, where they could see through, to see what's going on the other side and basically make the wall more like a barrier, that is, if you could think of a pipe that's put into the ground and the top of the pipe is pointy, basically just putting a series of pipes together, maybe, 3 and 4 inches apart. So they're sticking straight up out of the ground and you can see through them, but it's kind of hard to climb. And it creates a barrier, right? And really, if you needed to remove those pipes, I'm guessing for all intents and purposes, you could just pull them out of the ground and make a big entryway if you really wanted to. And where our president he was adjusting to these energies of compromise. So initially, he was going to say, okay, we don't need to make it out of concrete. Let's just fix the portions of the wall that need fixed. Let's go where there's no barrier and put a barrier up. And, we're going to meet in the middle. And then he felt pressure. He felt all that old world pressure from his base that came forward and said, but you said you were going to build it out of concrete. Where's our concrete wall? So then poor Mr. Trump, who does not have a tool belt that is inclusive of New World modalities in his leisure suit, okay? He doesn't have it. So he feels all this pressure and he's like, oh yeah, wait, right. I got to poker bluff again and go back to the whole point where it's concrete. Well, concrete walls are super expensive, very ridiculous to make, and they cost more money. So all of a sudden, here we were going to compromise on some reasonable border security. And it got all crazy because, the bluffing game started. So you're going to watch in government in 2019, all of this, kind of energy. You're going to watch it just go and just kind of wilt like a flower with not enough water in the Dixie cup that it's sitting in. We're going to watch this wilting of energy because unlike the masculine time frame where the more gasoline you poured on the fire, the bigger it got, there's no gasoline for this fire. So what we're going to see is this lack of energy to fuel the hubris that it takes to stalemate the government. And this is going to be a big deal. This is going to be a really big deal, especially for those in government who are in leadership, because they're not even going to know why they don't have the chutzpah or the motivation or the power inside of themselves to keep being stubborn. They're not going to know why they just feel weird and awkward in this position of throwing down so hard over nothing. They're going to feel weird about it. And so there's going to be no energy behind it. And, it's, I can do, you ever go to do something in your life and you're just super fired up about it. And an hour and a half later or a day later, you're like, God, I can't, I'm really having a hard time finding the motivation for this. Well, that's what we're looking at in this time frame. And what's interesting about that is as we are looking at that in this time frame, we're also looking at people just stepping out of these grand proclamations in government that they've made. And this is across the board. Now, what's interesting is we're going to see our older Congress people reacting to this lack of a flow of purpose quicker than our younger Congress people. When we're young, we can fill our tank with all sorts of ideas and hubris and fire and boom, we're going, right? The older folks are the ones who are going to be going, that's not working. That's weird. We need to do something else. So it's very important to note that as we go forward in government in 2019, we're going to watch our media outlets. They keep pumping this up. Oh my God, the border wall shut down, the border wall shut down. And they are reporting on it because it's their job. Thank you, journalists. It's also their job to let people know what's happening. It's also a little dramatic because we've got our leisure suit president throwing down the poker moves, so it's a bunch of hoopla right now. Yet Mr. Trump is going to feel the lack of flow. And here's the funny thing about Donald Trump. Is that he is actually an insanely intuitive person. This guy is deeply intuitive. Now, I would love to turn back the clock and go to a little Donald Trump, where when his father was tucking him in at night, would say, you know what, son, I'm so proud of you. I love you. Instead of poking his head through the door and saying, you are killers, you are kings. Good night. Wow, man. Because I would love to have seen what someone with Donald Trump's intuitive gifts could have done with himself had his format for what he was taught was powerful and respected was different. Yet he was supposed to be who he is to get us in this position now. And we are going to see in 2019 in government, we're going to see a few changes in Mr. Trump. And in my opinion, they're positive changes. He's going to wobble more to the middle because he naturally seeks approval. And before he's been trying to stand up for his base and he's been getting the approval from a fan base. What he's going to learn is he can get approval from the people he works with in government, and that little inner 7-year-old in him is going to want to seek that approval more than the approval from the fan base. Now, Donald Trump is a Gemini, so he's going to go back and forth between, do I want to impress the fan base for a while, and do I want to impress the government? Yet, this is a person who is extremely malleable. You may notice that our president changes like the wind depending on who puts the most pressure on him. And I can tell you firsthand, Donald Trump is absolutely terrified of Vladimir Putin. He is so afraid of that man. He respects him. He's fascinated by him, but he's afraid of him because, old Vlad, come on, he ran the KGB. He is scary people. I mean, he's the real deal of supervillains. And when Hillary Clinton, who actually really is the 45th president of the United States, and she knows it, even when she said they are not going to allow me to be president, she was right. Because Vladimir Putin would have had huge sanctions smashed against him. And not to mention, there were a lot of senior members of Congress that Hillary had massive dirt on. And she was going to air all of that and put a giant, you talk about building a wall, just this massive wall down as far as old world propriety goes. And she'd been building up her arsenal of all of this information for years. And whether you like Hillary or you don't like Hillary, she was going to come in and bring down this unbelievable hammer of change in the government. And that's the funny part about this, is that so many people perceived her as, because she had done some kind of shady old world stuff, right? Let's be honest. I mean, I love me my Hills, but come on, Hillary. So she had done that and played the game, yet she was banking all of that up to come in and just put a massive change into government. Well, Vladimir Putin knew that. The people in power knew that. They knew that the minute that woman swore in, she wasn't afraid of them. She wasn't scared of them. She wasn't intimidated by them. And she was just going to shut the whole old world down and bring in a new world. And so, with Vladimir Putin needing to have all of the oil interests that he needs and the steel interests, and trying to keep his power, because he's teetering over there. He's doing pretty well right now, but he's on some marginal footing because the minute that Russia can't trade with the United States anymore, they go broke. They not completely broke, gang, but they lose a lot of money. So we're going to see all of this fascinating stuff come forward in the year of Reconstruction. We are reconstructing how we deal with world governments. Donald Trump is going to reconstruct how he deals with Congress because he is a huge, believe it or not, I know it doesn't seem like he's an empath, but the guy is a huge empath. And people are like, no, he's not. He's a sociopath. Well, I got to tell you, sociopaths are some of the biggest empaths out there because they can feel what you need and they become it. So if we can just adjust our lens on our president for a minute, okay? And try not to stare at the plaid on his leisure suit. I know it's distracting, but let's adjust our lens and look at this individual as somebody who weirdly is going to model meeting people in the middle because he's going to have to. And then Mueller's investigation is going to come right out, and our president is a flight risk. So I'm not even going to get into that in this particular podcast because this is about the energy of reconstructing. So what does that mean? Well, what does that mean for us here in the United States? We are completely forged in the image of consumerism in this country. And I talk about that a lot on the show because it's super important. I mean, we can't make changes in ourselves if we don't understand how we got here in the first place. I mean, that just makes no sense, right? So because we have forged ourselves in the image of tribalism, in the image of branding ourselves to be one way or the other, because we have forged ourselves in these ways that are not productive, then the reconstruction also begins with each one of us. Now, I'm talking about our president because we've got so much focus on him. And that's part of what we feel as a country is the energy that is set from the top down. And I know people don't like to hear that, but it's really true. I don't believe that God put Donald Trump into power. I honestly think that was people who voted with a lot of help from Putin and a lot of gerrymandering. Yet, I believe that we have ushered in this time frame of great learning in an accelerated place, because 2019 is about how do we rebuild and reshape that which is already there, because 2020 is a completely different launching platform. And it's pretty early to talk about 2020's energies yet. So when I talk about 2019's big time year of reconstruction, that is also asking all of us to go in and remodel our consciousness and how we could co-create with one another, because there are folks out there who literally make a living on hating, and I'm using that word because they actually are able to somehow channel hatred towards one person, and they make a living hating Donald Trump. Seriously. So when we see this person who, for whatever reason, whether it's social pressure, whether it's the energetic pressure of the feminine time frame, whether he's just getting sick and tired of his armpits itching, wearing the leisure suit, whatever the motivation is, we are going to watch him come more into a co-creative position. Now, I see that that's going to be driven out of his empathic ability, feeling in, going, well, I'm kind of on a losing end of the deal here, so I need to make some adjustments. Yet what he's also going to happen upon in this is approval from areas that he wasn't expecting it. And what he's also not expecting is how good that approval feels to him. Because I know it's just shocking for some of you out there, but Donald Trump is a human being, okay? And so he's going to be feeling this energy in the feminine time frame saying, yeah, right? When you come together on something a little bit bigger than yourself, it feels good. Now, I don't even know that his consciousness will register the part that he's coming together on something bigger than himself. Yet what I do witness here is him going, wow, I feel like my energetic approval ratings are up. I like that. And, he is about 7 or 8 years old on the inside. And you know how kids seek positive or negative approval? So if you are someone listening today that just can't stand this guy, like you can't stand leisure suits, he just chops everything in you. First of all, the year of reconstruction is asking us to reconstruct ourselves. And nobody on the planet has the power to upset us that much except for us. So in this reconstructive process this year, the other side of this coin is that it's really important for us to be able to turn a discerning lens onto the self. If someone is a person who can't stand Donald Trump because he's so pompous and he's rigid and all these things, well, where in the self are we pompous and rigid? Right? If we can't stand Donald Trump because, oh my God, look at him. He's payola. He's paying off all his friends. He has a separate set of rules than I do. Is there a portion of us that wishes we too had a separate set of rules where we got to get out of jail free card and it doesn't matter what we do because nothing's going to stick to us because we have enough money to buy our way out? This is honestly a time frame of reconstructing how we look at the world. And this challenges the concept of, erasure, which is a term that means that we overlook the pain and the wounds of people who have been victimized simply to get on with it. This is not a process of erasure. This is a process of great re-inclusion of all modalities as we construct the self to understand that I may have to adjust my lens a little bit on Mr. Leisure Suit, okay? Because if I don't, then I personally am stuck in the old world tribalism and the old world sense of us against them. And that defies the feminine time frame's reconstruction for all that we have going on. So if you can think about what you're going to see in government coming up, not as big sweeping changes, yet weird balloons just withering in areas that don't work anymore. And then this sort of gentle moving forward with something that does. That's more what we're going to be seeing. And again, I do have a lot of empathy for all those people in government. And notice I said people. I didn't say white men. I said people. All these people in government that are addicted to the sense of tribalism and separation, because they're not going to know what happened to them when the balloon deflates. They're going to mistake that for a lack of identity, for a lack of purpose, because they've put so much identity and purpose into that hubris and tribalism. So it's going to be a really fascinating first part of 2019, okay? So that leads us next to the reconstruction of money. Money. Now, we've been seeing some really wild fluxes in the old stock market, and that's not super unusual over this time frame, especially the beginning of the year, especially during a government shutdown. Yet the honest truth is, send a lot of love to our government contractors, because they are the people who are affected by the shutdown the most, people who are not pulling in a paycheck right now. And let's hold all of these folks in a place of love and support and joy. And let's flood our quantum field that we all share with energy of grand prosperity for all of us. Look at the word all. A-double-L, all in capitals. All of us. That includes the 1%. Because the feminine time frame does not pick and choose the blessings that are put down onto this incarnation. So if we want to say, well, they've got enough and we need more down here, there is enough money in this world to go around 50 billion times. You know why? Because money is fake, okay? We can just keep printing it. And we say, well, we can't do that because it devalues the federal treasury. We have not had a gold standard in this country for decades. Our money is printed up and put out there based upon the participation of people. It's a fancy three-dimensional form of Bitcoin. We all believe it means something, therefore it does. So we have money. So when we think about our government employees who are furloughed because of this strategy of showing us that the old world modality of obstructionism and tribalism no longer works, which is totally what we're going to be seeing in the next couple of weeks here, which, you know, this shutdown isn't going to go on for months and months and years. It's just not going to. What we're going to see is adjustments in the president, adjustments in the Congress, gentle and easy, moving towards getting the country moving again in terms of healing and income. Now, we are going to watch our stock market wiggle a lot more, because as we are coming together, people get really uncomfortable with that. Isn't that sad? I mean, people don't know that coming together actually strengthens the economy, because the economy booms when we're at war. If you want to talk 1%, the military contracting companies make billions of dollars during wartime. People are employed building things during wartime. So what we're going to see is a shift of focus from let's make millions of dollars off of war to, wow, let's really focus on some infrastructure here. Now, this is going to bring up, and this is just a sidebar, but we do have, we've got our Russian steel that we're bringing in and Chinese steel and these supposed tariffs on this and that. And actually, we slapped China with a way bigger trade. We slapped their wrist harder on trade than we did Russia because Donald Trump is afraid of Vladimir Putin. He's afraid of him. And he also hopes that he'll give him some opportunities over there in Russia. So, I mean, it's all about money. So this year, we're going to watch our stock market go way up and way down and way up and way down. And that's going to be part of the reconstruction, because what that's about is not destabilizing the country. It's about us as a consciousness trying to decide how important is our system of currency and what we decide to invest in. We're literally going to be deciding in 2019 what we think is cool, where we want to put our energy. Now, that's what the stock market is. All the stock market is a collective decision to participate. So if we all collectively decide to participate in oil, oil is worth a lot. If we all collectively decide that gold is cool, gold is worth a lot. So I want you to think about this a minute. In 2019, the year of Reconstruction, the light bulb is going to be going on over people's heads as we figure out that we are what actually drives the economy. Not Exxon, not BP, not the diamond market, not the gold market, not the steel market, but our interest in all of those things generates wealth. The currency of 2019 is co-participation and interest. Okay? That's the investment in 2019. And we watched Bitcoin coming into 2018, the last part of 17 into 18, as a wonderful example of a money that's literally based on nothing except for everybody's excitement to use it. And I had clients that called and said, what about Bitcoin? And I'm like, well, go ahead and invest in it. It's going to have a little arc and it's going to come in and come out. And in 2019, we're not ready yet to replace our entire money system. But what we are going to do is show the stock market that we are the ones who decide what's cool and what's not cool. We finally figure this out as the American public. Instead of chasing stocks, we create them. And I'm seeing this happen about, I'm getting August and beyond on that. So this is something later in the year that we get some traction with. Yet once we recognize that we are the ones who are funding the billions of dollars of Pentagon budgets, we are funding the $800 toilet seats that are laundered through government budgets. Once we figure out that we are driving the boat here financially, our consciousness of victimization changes in America. And we've got some young Congress people who are going to be bringing this to the public. You know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is such a great example of somebody who just talks, and sometimes she gets it wrong, but then she turns around and says, gosh darn it, I got that wrong, and here's what it actually is. And she is such a great example of authenticity in government. And we're not used to that. We're used to people who are so worried about everything. And it's funny because when you compare, say, Donald Trump with Ocasio-Cortez, what you have vibrationally there is in Trump, you have somebody that is perceived as somebody who'll say anything and do anything because they don't care and they're going to take down the swamp and they're just going to bull through. But the fact is, poor Trump's story changes every 10 seconds because he's deeply freaked out by disapproval. He says he's not, but boy, is he. That guy watches television. He's obsessed with ratings. His inner 8-year-old wants to be picked for the kickball team 50 times a day. There is no rest for that person. Ocasio-Cortez? Heck, she's going to get up there and give you exactly her opinion. And if you don't like it, well, there it is. And if she makes a mistake, she says, sorry, I made a mistake. And she keeps moving because she is not interested in the approval of people. She's interested in bringing qualitative and quantitative change to our government. So we're going to see two different examples of what it means to, quote, drain the swamp or, quote, not be part of the system. And it's going to be really interesting. So what does this have to do with money? Well, we're going to see Ocasio-Cortez coming out and a lot of her fellow Congress people, by the way, coming out and saying, the American people fund all this, right? Everybody who buys stocks drives up the price. You know that, right? So if you want to see more in green energy, buy green energy stock. Buy less Exxon. Buy more, solar panel stock, whatever. We're going to see an acknowledgement in the reconstruction of our country in 2019 that we are not only part of the building process, we're the ones with all the supplies to build it. Okay? Our Congress they're like the foreman on the site, the building site. They're directing people where to put all of the different materials that we as members of the United States of America bring forward. Some of us have sheetrock. Some of us have nails. Some of us have really great woodworking skills. We are bringing everything we've got to the table. So this becomes a very important part of our sculpting process in 2019 because it's going to change money. So I'm going to just really quickly recap here at this point in the podcast that if you see people in government moving towards the middle, it's not because they're trying to play politics. It's not because they're trying to make everybody happy. It's not because they're trying to get more money from lobbyists. Well, a couple of them. Okay, fine. But overall, people are trying to get stuff done quicker because it's going to be important for us to have the understanding of what creates value in our money system. It's going to be very important that that is in place before the climate issues that we have are going to bring the full hammer of what's going to happen down on our heads. We need to understand how much capable power we have. And of course, I have people who listen to this podcast from all over the world. And of course, I'm speaking in terms of the United States. Yet this same ripple effect in governments, in consciousness, in coming to a compromise, reconstructive place with one another. This is what it's going to take worldwide for us to progress into some big earth challenges that we have. So, watching the government transition is going to be interesting. We just swore in Nancy Pelosi, and you may like her, you may not like her. Yet Nancy Pelosi is representative of the grandmothers. Hillary Clinton is representative of the grandmothers. Good heavens, we just had Elizabeth Warren who came forward and said, I am going to run for president. And immediately the narrative goes to, well, she looks like a turtle, or I don't know if she's likable, or she's not very pretty. We don't like the tone of her voice. Yet Elizabeth Warren, whether you like her, don't like her, would vote for her, wouldn't vote for her, is representative of the grandmothers. Do you see the pattern here? The grandmothers, this is the time frame of the grandmothers. It's the great mother has arisen. The grandmothers are who holds the wisdom to this portion of our time frame. It's a true thing. And actually, I would love to, I'm sure there are some amazing conservative women that could come forward that are older, that could have that wisdom also. We have that woman, and I'm blanking on her name, and forgive me, but the representatives who were up in Alaska and the senator from Maine, these women who they voted to confirm, Brett Kavanaugh, and it was a rule of law issue for them. Yet even these women, even if you disagree with what the vote that they cast for Brett Kavanaugh, these women hold the wisdom of the grandmothers. It's huge. So what am I talking about? Well, here's kind of the big section of this podcast, the year of when we are actually getting in there and reconstructing something, we are reevaluating how we look at things. And so if you happen to be a female and you are 60 and over, you are in the strongest point of your entire life. When we as women hit our 50s, our body is shifting, menopause, all that good stuff. Women in our 50s, I'm going to hit 50 in February 28th. I'm going to be 50 years old. So I can feel my body shifting, but more so I can feel my consciousness shifting. It's weird, you guys. I can feel my awareness shifting. I can feel this massive rush of energy starting to come through my chakra points in a way that it never has before. It is a powerful feeling. And ladies, if you are over 60 years old, 60 or up, that is what the angels refer to for men and women as the third phase of our life. Because our first phase of our life is all about figuring out how we work. The second phase is reflecting ourselves back from those around us to figure out who we are. The third phase of life is the application for everything that you are. Now, this goes for fellas too. Obviously, guys, if you're 60 and above, you are in a powerful, powerful position to understand that everything that you've learned can now be applied in that divine masculine stewardship to uphold the needs of the many, okay? Honestly. So fellas, you're cooking with gas too. Yet ladies, this is a very important message for you specifically. If you are 60 or older, you are in the most powerful position you're ever going to be in your entire life. What happens is that when we go through menopause, girls, whether you have kids or not, the body is made, our energy is routed in two different places. A big part of our chi is routed to our reproductive system because we happen to be walking around in the flesh machine that can reproduce. So half of our energy goes to that, and the other half of our energy goes to our own chi, to our own chakral points, to our own lessons, right? Now, when we go through menopause, that reproductive system says, okay, well, you know what? We're tagging out. You don't need us anymore. Girls, go use 100% of those energy reserves for you. So during menopause, when we're talking energies, 100% of our energies, we've been operating off of 50% of our energy for our entire life. And all of a sudden, the rest of the 50% is returned to us in full. Now, guys, you may notice that women go through menopause and have a lot of mood swings and a lot of weird stuff happens and they become this very powerful person, and sometimes women get angry and all these things. Well, guys, cut us some slack, okay? Because can you imagine having 50% of your power diverted somewhere else and then all of a sudden, whoosh, it all floods back 100% to you? You probably can't, and neither can we as women. So when it's happening, it's a little jacked up, all right? So ladies, hear this. 60 and above. So by then, for most ladies, that power has been completely returned from being diverted 50-50. It's 100% utilized by you, and for the world, which is why we see women, after they go through menopause, become the most powerful in their decision-making, and they're not giving a damn about what people think of them anymore, because 100% of that energy is no longer about caring for the family or the kids or diverted. It's all to the self. So, ladies, your chakral points have blown wide open like lotus flowers. You are fearless. And no, this is not some weird hormonal thing like, well, of course they're fearless, their hormones are crazy. Yes, hormones can get crazy, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the weight of energies in people's bodies. So let's go back to Nancy Pelosi, who's in her 70s, okay? She swears in, and again, whether you like her or don't like her, she swears in and she brings her grandkids up there, and then she invites all these children to come up. And she says, I pretty much dedicate this swearing in to all the children of the United States. And of course, all the media got on that and said, oh my God, it's a political stunt. And look at that stunt. And that is the old realm viewing the grandmother. What she did was an amazing spiritual proclamation at holding a space for those who have no voice. That is the grandmothers. And it is time for the grandmothers to arise. This is the time frame of the grandmothers. And we're going to see old Hillary Clinton come back around. And I know this is going to be hard because we keep thinking that anybody over the age of 60 is part of an old broken system. How many of you are out there who are over the age of 60 and you're neither old nor broken nor stuck in a rut nor owning it to the man? Come on. The people that I know that are 60 and older are liberated. They are amazing. They are powerful change bringers. And they're the very bottom end of the baby boomer generation. So know that women, especially 60 and up, this is the time frame. This year, we're going to see more grandmothers coming forward in a place of stewardship and being fearless in holding that perimeter for stewardship. And that is going to challenge, in America anyway, it's going to challenge in the United States our issue with ageism and the worship of youth. Now, have you ladies ever wondered why once we go through menopause, we're sort of cast into the pasture like we're just an old filly that had her day? We are discounted. We are called old hags and ugly. We are called angry and bitter and nasty. You ever wonder why we try to get discredited so hard by society? Because we are at our most powerful. And it is a power that is not self-serving. It is a power that is world-serving. It is a power that is children-serving. It is a power that is spouse-serving. It is a power that is animal and planet-serving. We are the mother creators. And when all of that energy flows through us and we channel it for the uplifting of the world, not one political agenda stands a chance. So this is why we get tossed out into the back 40. This is why they attacked Hillary to the degree that they did. And this is not the time frame to go point by point by point of debated principle that you don't like about somebody. I mean, you can if you want to, and obviously make note of the things in somebody that kind of chap you the wrong way or something you're keeping a hairy eyeball on or whatever. Yet to throw someone out completely during the feminine time frame doesn't work. We can't do it. And I know lots of people who, I'm using Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton as some really great examples today, even Elizabeth Warren, because those are names that if you say in certain circles, people spit their coffee up. Oh, I hate her, she's a blah, 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 blah. I mean, the vitriol that flies automatically from people when you say these people's names is phenomenal. Now, I'm sure people have some pretty good reasons for not liking these ladies. Yet think about it. Think about the skeevy, crappy, nasty, rotten, shifty, lobbyist, extorting, just self-serving fellas we've got in office. You know, with the exception of maybe Donald Trump, people don't fall apart like that when you say their names. They're like, oh, that guy's an ass. What a jerk. And they move on. So let's think about the fear, whether you like these ladies or not. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm using them as an example because they can be polarizing for some people. Let's look at the fear that the power of the feminine, once it crosses a certain threshold, let's look at the fear that inspires in people to have such a vitriolic hatred. I mean, you like who you like, you support who you support, that's fine. Yet I am talking about the spiritual physics of women over 60. And what we're going to see in this time frame, even though I love Ocasio-Cortez and she's kicking butt and taking names and you go, girl, we are going to see the true power come through women of a certain age. And it's not that other women won't make a difference and other men won't make a difference. And gentlemen, we're going to see guys rising to the occasion. You know, we recently had the Farm Bill passed. And for those of you that aren't noticing what the Farm Bill was, that was the non-criminalization of hemp that can produce CBD oil. So it can just be grown as a regular, crop. And if I'm not mistaken, Mitch McConnell was sponsoring that. Now, I can look at Mitch McConnell all day long and I can see all kinds of things that he and I would not agree on. And I can look at the Farm Bill and say, well, of course, they decriminalized hemp because people in the pharmaceutical realm are now seeing the huge benefits of CBD oil, and it's way cheaper to produce CBD than it is to chemically manufacture a reproduction of CBD oil, all right? And you get it from hemp. And there's two basically different kinds of cannabis. One you get the THC out of, and one you get the CBD out of. And so the kind you get the CBD out of was recently decriminalized. And that, like I said, if I'm not mistaken, and please Google this, but that was Mitch McConnell. So we could say, oh, well, I'm sure he just did it to put money in the pockets of his buddies. It doesn't matter why he did it. Now people can actually grow and distribute CBD oil, and maybe we can start getting off of opioids. So the feminine time frame asks us not to go point to every bit and piece of why somebody might have done it. This is a big picture time frame. Maybe Mitch McConnell got paid to do that. Who knows? But the bottom line is that people will have access to something that can help them get off opioids and help stop seizures. And it's no longer an illegal venture to produce this. So we're going to see CBD all over the place, which is going to help with our opioid crisis. And you start dealing with opioids and that opioid crisis, And the problems that we have coming over the border, not our beautiful, amazing folks seeking asylum, but the few folks we have coming over, running drugs. Let's talk about how many drugs we buy in the USA. I mean, my God, if there wasn't a market here for them, they probably would stop coming in with them. Think about that, okay? So, I mean, everything is interconnected. And in this past year, Donald Trump signed off on a copyright. It was a copyright rights allocation law that allowed little musical artists like myself to make more money from our music, because the corporate ASCAP and BMI interests that are supposed to track all the radio plays for all the many albums I put out there are not giving me the money they should, because I'm not a signed great big artist on a big record label anymore. And most of those performance rights organizations were designed to recoup money for the labels through the big artists. And so when they put this copyright thing into play, it said, hey, the little guy gets their money too. And that just went like through the cracks. And I remember shouting out about that on Facebook. And I said, I'm really not a fan of our president's modality, who he is, how he acts, what he says. Yet I would really like to thank Congress and the President of the United States for giving a nod to the musical community, for those of us that are not signed at this time. I used to be, I'm not anymore, to help us get money recouped. And I got jumped on so badly by some really good friends of mine saying, I can't believe you would ever say anything nice about that man. He's an abomination. How could you say that? I took the post down because it is not my war. This is not my war. Changing consciousness and proselytization is not my war. I just go battle to battle, and it's not even a battle. I am a messenger. And though I disagree wildly with our president on many things, the feminine time frame is asking all of us to come forward to acknowledge the good deeds when they are put into play. Because when we do that, it creates a resonation of love, and it creates bridges of joy and of co-creation. So, I'm certainly not necessarily a fan of Mitch McConnell and certain things that he has done. Yet with him, sponsoring this farm bill or pushing it, or for whatever reason he did, I was appreciative that it happened, because the feminine time frame asks me to appreciate actions that are taken where most people will benefit from. It asks me to come out of my individual stance. It asks me to not have to be right point to point, to still have a discerning eye, but to not get bogged down in the fear of tribalism that would say, well, I'm a registered Democrat and those two are Republicans, so I have to say anything they do is terrible. That's ridiculous. Because don't we want those two people to, as example, look at someone like Ocasio-Cortez or Nancy Pelosi and say, hey, you got a few good ideas too. Let's work on that. So we must become the resonation, the walking, talking embodiment of the resonation of reconstruction and change. We must each individually embody this. And it doesn't mean I don't have my opinions about lots of politics and money and people, and of course I do. Yet I literally understand the spiritual physics enough to look at the big picture. And granted. I do have a little bit of an advantage. I don't even want to say an advantage. That's not the right word. A benefit. I have a benefit from being able to look down certain timelines to see how it all plays out. So I can see that somebody's saying, well, here's your copyright money. And, oh, by the way, here's CBD oil, is now non-criminalized to grow that type of hemp. I can see the people it helps. So the people who put into play become much less important than having gratitude or extending graciousness towards the action that was taken. So the year of Reconstruction is going to ask us all to reconstruct our beliefs, to reconstruct how we respond, to reconstruct and come up with a more constructive, co-creative way to design our new world. And when we find that there are people or situations that require our assistance, that require our voice, people over 60, rise up, babies. This is your time. Women over 60, own that voice. The society that you live in has been terrified of you for hundreds of years because of your pure innate ability to bring through absolute change that benefits the whole and not the one. So ladies, let your compassionate voices be heard. We're going to have some things we're going to need to step up with socially and financially in 2019. And let us do so in co-creative collaboration, because that's the only thing that's going to work in this year of reconstruction, really. Watch. Don't take my word for it. Watch. Watch the obstructionism fall on its butt. Just watch. Just watch. I, for one, am very excited about the year of reconstruction. It's going to be so awesome. I'm so excited about it. So everybody listen, go forward in this week. Figure out how you can co-create this new world by bringing your greatest gifts and talents and power to the table. Do your best. Your homework is to not immediately discount people because they're the character that would normally carry your disdain on their back. I know that's challenging, right? Oh, challenges me sometimes. Yet as we move into this space, we're going to see a co-collaborative government. And that's why we're not seeing people jumping on impeachment right now, because we're trying to work something out legally that is far more impactful for people in the long run. So keep your eyes on that. But it's time to end this podcast. So that's a teaser. That's a teaser for next week. However, I want you to go forward this week knowing that you are what drives the quantum field in the world. We get to create the world that we wish to see, and we can change our mind at any minute about anything. And that does not take away from your identity or who you are. All it does is demonstrate growth when that mind change is plugged into the world for the work towards uplifting the all. All right, everybody. Can't wait to see you next week. For those of you who want to see what I'm up to, head over to my website. That's Danielle Egnew, EGNEW-advisor.com. I'm going to have some events I'm going to be posting. They're not quite up yet, but I'm going to have some events I'm going to be posting and some really cool new things coming up this year. So stay tuned. Have a great week, and I will see you next week.